legends are made. Untouchable, a new animal. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. I got the lightning inside me.
Take it out, baby. Woo! It's my honor to give you guys MVL championship.
You already know. Hey, since we was little kids, bro, we were working at something like this. This is the main idea right here. We got to it.
This is how legends are made.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special edition of the Indian Nation Station pregame show right here on the Indian Nation Station. I'm your host, AJ Ganger. With me, as always, the one and only Brian Gillespie. Brian, tonight is the opening round of the 2021 OHSAA football playoffs as the Panthers of Little Miami invade Alexander Stadium to take on our Piqua Indians. Brian, I know you're excited for this one.
I'll tell you what. Postseason action. Finally, we get to see a little fresh faces. We get to see a team that Piqua's never played before. In Little Miami, and it should be an interesting matchup for a first-round matchup between a 1 and a 16 seed. I think it'll be actually a little bit closer than we expect.
I think so, too. Piqua, we capped off some big things last week in our win against Stebbin. First of all, our first back-to-back MVL outright champions. We're outright champions of the Miami Valley Conference for back-to-back years. Also, back-to-back undefeated seasons. First time in school history. And we also have earned the #1 seed in Division II Region 8. That Fairborn game, we'll see that score here in just a few minutes, but Fairborn really helped us out to get that #1 seed.
Hard to believe that a team you put 70 up on actually ended up pushing us into the #1 seed. But since we didn't play West Carrollton, and Fairborn beat West Carrollton, which to me is stunning. Well, maybe not stunning because West Carrollton's has had a pretty terrible season. But Fairborn, when we saw them play, didn't look like they would beat anyone on any field anywhere.
No.
And for that to happen and to actually bump us into the 1 seed from the 2 is stunning.
Yeah, it really is. And another thing, too, I think maybe another thing that maybe factored into us getting that #1 was because Kings played Little Miami last week, and then they would have had to turn around and play again this week if that was the case.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. All I know is we're the #1 seed. We got a pretty nice draw.
Yeah, we did.
Now there's no guarantees in life.
No.
You know, you got to stay safe with COVID. You got to win the game. The teams that beat the teams that they put in front of you.
Yeah.
But if you look at the brackets, if you were to draw it out and say, okay, these are the teams that we would like to be in our side, I think we got about exactly what we'd like.
Yeah, I think so, too. Let's take a look back at Week 10 around the MVL. Sydney beat Xenia 38-0. Troy shut out Butler 31-0. Tip City, close win over Greenville 27-13. Fairborn with the 3-point win against West Carrollton. And obviously, Piqua, we beat Stebbins 49-6 in the, I think, third soggy raining game we've had all season, and we're about to have another one tonight as well.
It's hard to believe. It's like the rain circles back around every Friday and says, okay, Piqua's playing football. Let's get after them.
Yeah, that is for sure. Before we take a look at some stats from last week, Brian, we would like to remind everybody that tonight's game against Little Miami will be live on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube page. The link will be posted on our Facebook page. My Twitter, that is at Ganger8002, that's Ganger 8002, as well as the Piqua Athletics Twitter page at noon today. The link will be posted along with the hype video that you saw before the show. I know you're excited about the live stream, Brian. I know a lot of people in the community are too.
I'll tell you what, it's about time. It's nice that we're kind of past the whole league issues with that, and we can get on live and have a good group of people watching us. I think we'll get a lot of views. We're just excited to present this game. This is a tournament game, win or go home.
Yep, that is what it is from now on. It's week 1 every week as we get into the playoffs Let's take a look at some stats here. Pickle with 518 total yards against Stebbins, 470 of it on the ground. Of that 470, Josiah Medley with 304 and Brady Uhl with 105. They accounted for almost every single yard rushing that we had on Friday night.
I'll tell you what, Medley is just, racking up titles, racking up everything you can ask. He's gonna win the NBL MVP almost for sure.
Yes.
Player of the year. He's got the most, at least according to most that I've heard. He just broke the single season, regular season Piqua touchdown mark with 28.
Yes.
Which the overall mark, which is incredible, the fact that Brandon Sain scored 11 touchdowns in the postseason in 2006, apparently, to get to 38. But you never know. He could do that in this postseason if they go far enough. I mean, the way he's putting up, as I looked at the stats, most guys in the record books for Piqua for yards per game, they have the best yardage total.
Yeah.
But their yardage total averages are average yards per carry 7.4, 8. I think 9.2 was the best other. Josiah's putting up 11.4 yards per carry this year.
Over a first down per time he touches the ball.
Every time. If you hand it to him, you're thinking a first down at the very least.
That's insane.
It's hard to believe. That is way above and beyond anyone. If they had a specific category, just said yards per carry, he'd be there already. You're looking at touchdowns. He's got 29. He needs 9 more if you count the receiving touchdown he has. A couple weeks ago, I would have told you were crazy.
Yeah. But
at this point, though, 304 yards on 16 carries and 4 touchdowns against Stebbins. Now they're not the 85 Bears,
no,
but that's an incredible tally.
Yeah.
And the numbers just, 1 week you think he can't beat, he just gets better by the week. So watch out, Little Miami.
That is definitely true. And the funny thing is he broke Brandon Sain's record through 10 games was what Brandon Sain played in the regular season. We only played 9 games this year, and he still broke the record.
That's a great point. In 9 games. Could you imagine if we played that awful West Carrollton team? He would have had 4 or 5 more touchdowns.
He would have had 4 or 5 more touchdowns.
And he would have definitely broke the record. So he still got a shot at it, which is incredible for a shortened season.
Corey Miller did have 2 catches for 40 yards. One of them for a touchdown. It was a 20-yard touchdown there in the first quarter. First touchdown of the game. Sam Schmeezing had a game on the defensive side, 12 total tackles. Landon Hare was playing like somebody possessed. He probably could have been charged for murder a couple times with some of these tackles that he had. 11 total tackles and a sack. Devin Finley and Braden Strayer both had an interception. Strayer, the MVL leader in interceptions so far this season, which is an incredible accomplishment for him as well.
Well, we have 14 interceptions this year, which is a pretty impressive number. And to speak to some of those other things, Corey Miller with the 2 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. What makes Piqua so difficult to defend is when we pass the ball, you don't know who we're going to.
No.
They've got 7 guys with 2 touchdown catches.
Yeah.
You see most teams, you see one guy has 6, another guy has 4, and there's maybe one guy with 1. Mm-hmm. We've got a bunch of targets, so that defense has to cover everybody. It's not like Uhl picks, okay, I'm going to throw it to this guy every single time. He spreads it around and makes it very difficult for defenses to cover.
Yeah, and that's what makes him such a special quarterback, too. You see a lot of guys, even in the NFL, they focus on one of their receivers and everybody else is left in the dust. He spreads it around, gives everybody some love.
Yeah, he's not picky. He wants to win. He finds the guy that's open, and he's now got 12 touchdown passes on the year. He's only, he's 4 short of the all-time record for Piqua at 16. Mm-hmm. So that's doable.
Yeah. Especially
with teams where I think we're going to have to score some points here in the playoffs against some teams that we're not going to be able to just hand it off. They may make us throw it. But again, that's the challenge when you play Piqua is, okay, we stopped Josiah, which no one has anyway.
Yeah.
But they've been stacking 7, 8 guys in the box. They still haven't figured out how to stop him. And then, okay, well, if we stop him, all they're going to do is step back and he's just going to pick us apart.
And, another thing that when you say about that they're stacking 7, 8 guys in the box, you have to give a huge shout out not only to the offensive line, but those receivers that are blocking as well to allow Josiah to get out there and pick up big yardage. I mean, it's not just the offensive line. It's those other guys, those secondary receivers or slot guys that are picking up great blocks as well.
Well, and that's a hard job because you have to play the percentages between holding and just holding your block without holding a guy. Yes. You got to let him go. We've learned that lesson earlier in the year. We had a couple holding on the outside. But you got to, once Josiah gets out there, because he's going to get out on the edge. He's going to get out on the sideline. Once that happens, you have to release and just let Josiah do work his magic. Because one-on-one against a corner, I don't like their chances against Josiah.
I don't either. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors that have supported us all throughout the 2021-2022 school year. Kathy Henney, Elite ETC, Dick Lumpkins Auto Body, Morse Comfort Systems, Harmony Systems, Little Caesars Pizza, Edison State Community College, Employee Bridge Resource Manufacturing, Dr. Littlejohn, and the Crayex Corporation. Thank you for all your support all throughout the 2021-2022 school year. Brian, let's take a look at the pairings here, as we also have brackets that we can kind of dive in just a little bit more. 16 seed Little Miami is a 4-6. They travel to Pickwood tonight to take on Pickwood, who's 9-0. 15 seed Lima Senior, 3-6, is at number 2 seed Kings, who's 10-0. Xenia, another MVL team, 14 seed. They're 5-4 on the season. They travel to Cincinnati Anderson, who is 8-2. Stebbins 5-4. They'll travel to 4 seed Tays Valley at 9-1. Sydney at 12 seed 5-5 on the season. They travel to Edgewood to take on the 5th seeded 7-2 Edgewood team. Cincinnati Harrison 4-5 traveled to 6 seed LaSalle. Turpin 10th seed 6-4 travels to 7 seed Winton Woods, who is 7-3. And Troy, the 9 seed, takes on the 8 seed Winthrop at Winthrop tonight. And we will play the winner if we win our game against Little Miami of Winthrop and Troy. So we could get that rematch against Troy and tie the series up.
Ooh, that would be an intense game.
Yeah.
Second round of the playoffs with everything on the line, that would be an interesting. I'll tell you what's different about this year's bracket from last year is Pickwood ended up in the non-Cincinnati region.
We did, which was good. We definitely got a good draw.
Last year we ended up basically it was going to be Cincinnati to get to state. And this year we flipped brackets. Yes. Now it's basically, if you're looking at, you might have Withrow, but Edgewood's not a Cincinnati team necessarily. And keep an eye on Edgewood. They beat the daylights out of Ross, a good team out of Cincinnati not too long ago, the Fighting Ratliffs. And Ross is a good team, and he told me how good Edgewood was. We need to be aware of that because I think they're going to handle Sydney. I will keep an eye on Stebbins, Tays Valley. Tays Valley is the 4 seed. Probably shouldn't be because they don't play one team in Division II. They played one Division II opponent all year.
Yeah.
They played one team with a winning record all year, I believe, and they got beat handily. So that's a little bit of a misnomer there with the 4 seed. Stebbins can score a lot of points.
Yeah.
I think that Stebbins has an outside shot in that game. But Withrow Troy should be a real interesting matchup because Withrow has a lot of wins. They play City League up there in the City League up in Cincinnati. A lot of athletes. They're going to cause some trouble. But Troy's been on a roll.
Yeah.
They've played very well down the stretch. That should be an interesting matchup for sure. Leading in Pickwood, Little Miami, of course. We've been talking about that. That should be pretty good. On the other side of the bracket, even though they're the 6th seed, LaSalle is going to be a handful.
They always are.
They always are. They're kind of like the Baden of Division II.
Yeah.
Hamilton Baden, who's, great in Division III. LaSalle's that team now. And Harrison, LaSalle, that's a tough matchup just for the first round. And then you have Anderson, poor Xenia. They've been struggling. That's a rough matchup for them. Struggling down the stretch. I don't see Xenia winning that game.
I don't either.
Winton Woods, Turpin could probably coin toss there. Lima Senior is gonna get. It's gonna be ugly there.
It's going to be really hard for any of these teams on this side to, I think, compete with Kings. Even Anderson. I think Anderson played Little Miami a couple weeks ago, and Little Miami took them to overtime. I do think Anderson played Kings earlier this year, and I think it was only like a touchdown game or something like that. But I mean, again,
second round matchup between LaSalle and Anderson will be a heck of a game.
I think so too. I think LaSalle might get him if that's going to be an upset. Like you said too, the first round you could have Stebbins upsetting Taze Valley. I mean, that's just something that could happen. And the funny thing is, if things work out in a weird way, Piqua could go Cincinnati team, MVL, all the way to the finals, and then they would play the Cincinnati team there. So, I mean, crazy things can happen in the playoffs.
They can. I don't like Sydney's chances against Edgewood.
I don't either. But
I would say that's unlikely, but I will say Troy, there's a very high likelihood. I'd say that 50-50 there that we go play Troy again here at home, which would be played there earlier this year, and of course it rained buckets, and you come back home. Hopefully you don't have rain that day, and you can truly show what you're about, because I think that Piqua wasn't exactly themselves that night with the weather in play. I think they're better than Troy, but again, Troy's gotten better as the year's going on.
They really have.
So that would be a different game. They're playing round two.
And what a thing it would be. I know we're talking about next week already, but what a thing it would be for this junior class to going into their senior year, and these seniors to be able to tie up the series and then come back next year, those juniors, and take the lead back in the series again. What an amazing thing that would be if it happened.
Yeah, I still can't get over the fact that series is so close after so many matchups.
It's the weirdest rivalry. Like, nobody gets 3 games ahead before it goes back to being tied. It's been like that all the time.
Yeah, it's one of the best rivalries in the state. And, I'd venture to say one of the best in the nation if you're talking about history and closeness. So
let's take a look at some of the other MVL teams that are in the playoffs. In Division III, Region 12, the 16th-seeded Vandalia Butler Aviators are 3-6. They will travel to Hamilton Baden, who is 9-0 on tonight, and as well as Mount Healthy, the 10-seed, 6-4. They travel to 7-seed Tip City, who is 8-2. Tip City and Piqua, only 2 MVL teams with a home game in the playoffs.
Yeah, for 8-2 to end up as a 7 seed, that tells you all you need to know about that bracket.
Yeah,
there are teams probably from 7 on up that could win that bracket.
Yeah,
to be honest.
And then Tip City's only 2 losses all year: Bellbrook and us.
And those 2 good opponents.
Yeah.
So, but you've got Monroe in that bracket. You've got Ross. You've got all those teams in there. It's a rough bracket. It's going to be fun to watch to see who gets out of that bracket. Butler, on the other hand, I don't like their chances.
I don't either.
Baden's number 1 in the state. They've absolutely dominated pretty much everyone you put in front of them this year. Now, Ross and Baden played a relatively close game, so I can't say they dominated everyone, but they've pretty much done a number on most. And I don't think Butler I don't know that Butler will score. They didn't score last week. I don't know that they're going to score in that game either.
I don't think so.
That's
either.
a tough matchup.
Yeah. Let's move into tonight's game here. Little Miami invading Alexander Stadium to take on our Piqua Indians in the first round of the playoffs. Brian, what can we expect to see from them, and what are some keys to the game for Piqua tonight?
Well, what you'll see is a team that plays up to their competition. Mm-hmm. They ended their season with a pretty close loss, if you considering 28-10 to the number 2 seed Kings, which was essentially going to be number 1 until thank you Fairborn. So that, and they also, like you mentioned earlier, the 3rd seed at Anderson, good team. Yeah. They only lost to them in overtime by 1. Now they've also have some history here. They made the postseason 4 straight years now. Their head coach is in his 3rd year. He played for Mount Union in football, and he was a defensive lineman, and he has a history of winning. He was part of 3 national championship teams.
Yeah, anyone who knows Mount Union football in the OAC knows that it's Mount Union and everybody else.
Yeah, he started out as Little Miami's defensive coordinator prior to getting the head coaching job, but he's got some history of success, and I'm sure he'll have those guys prepared.
Yeah.
So talking about their key players, you have senior quarterback number 16. His name is Aiden Jones. He's got 15 touchdowns. He does have 8 interceptions. So look for Piqua, who's been able to force some turnovers this year, to try to get a couple of those in this game to really make it hard on them. You got Ashton Middlecamp. Their top running back is a senior. He's got 861 yards rushing. That's 3rd in the Eastern Cincinnati Conference. He averages 15. He carries the ball or touches the ball about 18 times a game. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for a guy to keep an eye on in this game, it'll be number 32 because they're going to get the ball to him quite a bit.
Sounds like it's going to be a game in the trenches for our defensive side. Our front seven is definitely going to have to step up.
Well, their average, their stats are very average. The defensive, offensive stats were all kind of in the middle of the conference for the ECC. So nothing really sticks out at you. They really only average 8th in the ECC with rushing yards per game. But again, it looks like they have some talented players. They like to spread you out. Like a lot of those Cincinnati teams like to spread you out. Pretty typical offense of what you will see on a week basis here. They're going to try to get people out in space, especially middle camp, and try to get him the ball and get him some one-on-one situations. So it's going to be a interesting thing. Again, every week we talk about another team's offense coming in here. Or we're going to Stebbins. Stebbins scores lots of points. They scored 6 last week against us. So we make other offenses not look as good as they would usually look against other teams. So now Stebbins moved the ball a little bit last week, as I saw, but they couldn't get it in the end zone.
No.
That defense held up strong. We've done that to everybody this year. We're not giving up a lot of points. That's going to be a challenge for Little Miami to figure out how do we get some points up. I think they will score some. I don't know that they'll have enough to beat the Piqua Indians this week, though.
I don't think so either. Our offense just scores too quickly and too often when you really think about it. I think we've punted less than 10 times all season long on the offensive side, which is an insane stat through 9 games. What about defense? What can you see on the defensive side?
Defensive side, their strength is their linebackers. They have really good linebackers. They have one kid, number 4 senior linebacker, Nick Greenwell, was second in the ECC with 10 sacks, which is a pretty good tally. They had 3 other linebackers. I don't know how they do their sacks numbers, but if they got this many sacks, it's a heck of a team.
Yeah.
They had 4 sacks from another guy, 79 tackles, second in the ECC. His name is number 20 senior linebacker Michael Cornett. Okay, he's just 9 games played. He had 79 tackles. That's a pretty high tally. Mm-hmm. And then you got 78 tackles from number 50, another senior linebacker named Trey Miller. He's third in the ECC, and he only played 8 games. So he had 4 sacks in 8 games. Cornett had 4 sacks in 9 games. And then senior linebacker Marcus Jones had 3 sacks and 59 tackles. So you've got a lot of activity in that linebacking core. They're going to be coming after Ewell. How do you handle that? Do you just – I would imagine it's going to be a heavy dose of Josiah early and make them prove that they can stop them.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to set up our pass game with our running game tonight.
For sure. I think they're going to, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're you may say, well, I want to be tricky, but I don't think Piqua needs to be tricky right now. I think more so you just got to go with who got you there. Yeah. And that's where we're at with Josiah. And if it doesn't work early, then you adjust as you go. But I think Josiah Medley is going to be the guy that gets a large bulk of the opportunities early in the game.
I think so too. Well, we will be without Tanner Kemp. I did hear that Tanner is not playing tonight due to his injury that he sustained last week against Stebbins. So Bryson Roberts, backup, going to have to step up. Kai will have to step up as well. But I think the Indians are probably going to win this one pretty handily.
Well, the nice thing is you have depth.
Yes.
A lot of teams would be like, oh, man, we lost one of our best running backs, and then they'd be like, okay, we'll just throw it more. But we have Bryson Roberts, who's probably carried it more this year than Tanner has anyway, just because of a myriad of injuries. Tanner's been kind of, unlucky that way this season. Hopefully he'll come back with a week rested, and they'll still be in the playoffs, and they'll, maybe get another shot at it and get an opportunity in round 2.
I think so. I hope so, too. Well, we want to thank everybody for watching the Indian Nation Station pregame show right here on the Indian Nation Station. We will be bringing you these playoff games live unless Spectrum is here to cover the game. We'll have information on that if that ends up happening. And in that case, we'll let everybody know. We're also going to be trying to travel with the team and cover some of our neutral site games as well. Just keep an eye on our schedule for that. If we can't for some reason, we'll obviously be doing those neutral site games the same way we've done all of our road games this year. Pay attention to the social media accounts, obviously, regarding our coverage. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ring the bell to get notified every time we post a new video or go live. Stay tuned for this game coming up next, live only on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube page with Tom Michaels and Brian Gillespie on the call. For Brian, I'm AJ Ganger saying good night, ladies and gentlemen. Go Piqua and beat Little Miami.